Hi, I'm Tayva Singer from CaliQuiltCo.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make one of the Shannon Fabrics infinity scarf kits. We make a bunch of these different kits in a lot of different colors at CaliQuiltCo.com. We always use the Shannon Fabrics pattern to sew up their beautiful cuddle. And so today I'm showing you one in Aruba. This is the color of this. So what is so fabulous about this fabric is how plush and soft this feels, and so this makes a wonderful gift. And I always say this is where you have the magic trick of sewing. Ordinarily we spend way more money than it costs to make something for someone as a gift, but in this case you buy a kit for $10 and you turn it into a $35 handmade gift. I love that. So it makes it really nice as a teacher gift for all kinds of people. Now ordinarily we always want to find which way the nap is going, and with this Cuddle scarf kit, it does not matter at all, okay? So the first thing I do is line up my big long seam, and I want to pin it. Now, in this case, whenever I'm working with Cuddle, I always want to use these clover flower head pins. They're really strong and durable, and they can handle the weight of the fabric. And the other thing that's really, really helpful with this is to do a double row of pins. Now, often, you hear people talk about, oh, when you're sewing that Cuddle fabric, you need to pin so close, and you do. But actually, in this case here, this is plenty. And you see how I have a few fingers space in between my sets of pins, and that's plenty. They don't have to be touching each other. This is a knit fabric. It's a knit polyester fabric. And so, especially with this thick pile, it wants to shift and move on you. So that's why we have a few of these tips and tricks that really help to make the whole process go smoother, and you end up with a really nice finished product, which matters. And so here I have done a double row of pins, and now I'm going to bring it over to my machine, and I put on this big clunky walking foot, and this is a dual feed foot where it's going to pull the fabric from the top and the bottom at the same time. The other thing I want to do is come over and change my stitch length. And so ordinarily when I turn on my machine, it defaults to a 2.5 millimeter stitch length. I want to increase that to 3.5 or 4. I personally like 4. It pulls the fabric through faster. I like it. I like the way it looks. The other thing is you want to get both layers of fabric all the way, and you see I push up on this and it gives me just a little extra space. I start with the fabric all the way underneath the presser foot, and then I'm going to do a little back tack, but by putting it all the way underneath here, that gives the feed dogs a chance to work, and then I don't have everything get pulled into the machine and make a big mess. So start with the fabric all the way underneath the presser foot. A couple of stitches, back tack. And then I remove one row of pins as I sew. Now you can see right here where the top part wanted to kind of bunch up. I'm doing this intentionally to show you all the things that can potentially go wrong, because there's a way to fix it all, okay? So this little bit, I don't want to have it lay over and become a pucker. I don't want to have any weird fold in there whatsoever. So I'm going to pull out this pin and I'm just going to give it a little tug. And when I pull on it, I'm not stretching it, I'm just pulling it taut. There's totally a difference, and you'll know it as soon as you try it. Now, if I go to pull it taut right now and I still have a little bit of a bubble, I'll actually pull out my second pin. And when I pull that out, that should let everything come loose and help it go right through and flatten it out, okay? So now I can sew. And when I'm sewing now without my pin in here and I'm getting close to the edge, it's wanting right here to try to come underneath my presser foot and take away, I've been sewing right on the edge for my seam allowance, and it's wanting to come in. And this is where I love using the By Annie stiletto tool, because this is sharp and it is strong, and I just push and I'm like, no, you will do what I say. And I push this Cuddle underneath there and it will stay. It's really strong and powerful, and it's not my fingers, okay? And now as I sew, I'm going to not be pulling from the back, but I'm going to help keep it nice and taut. And that's how I prevent more of the little pile up. So we don't want it to pile up and move and shift. That's not fun. This one came out, no big deal. I keep my stiletto in my hand because I use it so much, but as long as it doesn't start to push up where it's starting to shift and the top part starts to bulk up, I don't actually have to use it. I just keep I keep a little bit of tension going here. Get nice and taut. Last pin. Now, I'm going to help hold all this in place, and I'm done. Okay, first seam is finished. I'm going to trim that, and now I want to pull out all of my pins. All right, first seam done. That seems really easy, right? Now the fun part. You get to turn it right side out. Right side out, beautiful. Now with this, I have my seam, and I want my seam now to be on one of the edges. Okay, I don't want my seam in the middle. To have your scarf lay the best possible way, you want to have that seam, and it doesn't matter if it's on this side or this side, but you do want to have that seam all on one side. And now the next step is my favorite, and you want to watch this one. Okay, so we're going to fold this in half, but as we fold, we're going to put one turn in. Okay, so I'll show you again. I have my seam on one of the sides, either or, doesn't matter. And as I fold this together, I'm going to put a turn in, like so. So now I have this big goopy mess. Now what I want to do is I want to reach inside and hold tight just right here in the middle. I'm going to hold this in tight, and now I'm going to put it inside out. I'm going to flip it inside of itself. That's a very odd, weird thing to describe in a pattern, and they actually do a really beautiful job. When I read it, I was like, oh, this is going to be hard. I'm not going to be able to do this, but it's actually that easy, okay? And now that I have that part done, I'm just going to put a couple of pins in just to hold it in place for me for a minute, and then I'm going to show you how I like to mark this before I sew. Okay, perfect. Now you can see right here, it got a little bit off. I can leave that or I can snip it. Right now I'm just going to leave it because it's just a little tiny bit off, like maybe 1/4 of an inch, where the bottom didn't match up totally perfect. But this is such a forgivable fabric, you'll never know it when you see this done. Okay, so now I have that kind of just pinned, marking the space. And now what I'm going to do is take a Sharpie, and I'm going to actually write with a black Sharpie on a light fabric. Promise you, it works, okay? Now, I need to sew all the way around this, but before I do that, I need to mark where I'm going to stop. I need to leave an opening that's big enough for me to put my hand in. I don't need to leave a huge one, but I have big, giant hands, and so it needs to be big enough. And so I'm doing about a 1/2 inch seam, a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And so I'm going to mark it right here, but this is going to be the part that I keep open. Now, I could go and draw a line, use a ruler. I don't need to do all that. You don't need to do that either, okay? But you can if that makes you feel more comfortable. But this is the part where I'm going to start and I'm going to sew around. So now I'm going to change my pins and turn them into my double row of pins. So now I just come back around. By doing those little pins in the beginning, it helped to just hold it in place so I could mark it where I wanted things to be without everything shifting on me. And if it shifts and everything goes wrong, all you do is put it right side out again and start over again. That doesn't take very long. You saw it, to flip it and put one twist in there, not a big deal. So just do it again. Very, very forgiving. Okay, so now I have everything pinned. On my machine, I'm just going to pull this part off. You don't have to. This just makes it easier for me. So I pull that part of my machine off so that with my cuff, I don't worry about sewing through the back side of it. This machine is pretty strong and it can go right through it, and I don't always feel the difference, and so this helps me, okay? So now first I'm going to sew down and then pivot. What this does is it gives you the ability to make that lay nice and flat. So again, I'm starting on the fabric, not right at the edge. I'm still at my 4.0 stitch, and I'm going to just do a couple of stitches, then I'm going to back tack. I want to make this nice and strong. Then I pivot, and now this time I make sure that I get my cuff underneath my machine, and then I don't have to worry, again, because I have done it wrong, I don't have to worry about sewing through the other end. Okay, press her foot down and sew. With this, you don't need to try to keep your seam allowance pressed to one side or pressed, finger pressed open. You don't need to do any of that. You can sew through all the bulk. You will never feel the difference. Never. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of bulk. I can just give it a little tiny tug. And now I just slow down a little tiny bit, come back to my black mark that I've put in there, and I'm going to sew and a little tiny back tack. Boom. I'm actually done. Okay, yes, done. I'm going to clip my threads here. I'm going to pull out all of my pins. And now, through this little hole that I have, I don't put my whole hand through there because I have big giant man hands, if you haven't noticed. And so I just use my fingers. They're strong and I can push this through. But you just take your time. You don't have to force it through. That's also why I back tack there. But that little part of sewing off the edge like that, that's what helps this to lay really flat. And so when I'm making scarves for myself, I don't even sew the rest of it shut. I don't sew that little hole shut. If I'm giving it as a gift to one of my best friends, I don't sew it shut either, because they're my good friend. They're not going to be cranky. If I'm making it as a gift for someone, then I suck it up and I hand sew that shut. Or I try to bribe one of my employees to help me to sew it shut for me. Worst case, if I'm really in a super huge hurry, I will actually just sew it shut right with my machine. But you see this little tiny opening? It is going to be almost where you can't even see it, but that's actually going to be on the inside anyway. So now I like to give it a little bit of fluffing, a little bit of fussing, and it's done. And for me, I keep that right in the back, but now you put it on and you have this cute little fluffy, fluffy scarf. And you'll see as you first give this to people, they walk around petting themselves like this. Just let them. You can't help it. It's the Cuddle. Cuddle is Shannon Fabrics brand of Minky fabric, this super soft plush polyester fabric that we are obsessed with. We are Cuddle headquarters here at Cali Quilt Co. And we have Cuddle scarf kits in so many colors, more than I can count, and we're always adding more. So visit us at caliquiltco.com or on one of our Facebook live sales and purchase one of these. Again, it's a great way to turn $10 into a $35 handmade gift. Thank you for joining us.